Welcome to Price Elasticity Decoded, where we explore how demand and supply respond to price changes and why that matters for revenue and strategy. In this presentation, we'll unpack the core concepts, show visual examples of demand and supply curves, and walk through real-world cases so you can see how elasticity drives pricing decisions and business outcomes. This slide explains the elasticity coefficient as a measure of responsiveness, shown visually as the percent change in quantity demanded over percent change in price. If the absolute value is greater than 1, demand responds strongly to price movements. If it is less than 1, demand is relatively unresponsive. The diagram also hints at midpoint and point formulas, used for different calculation contexts. Several factors shape price elasticity, starting with the availability of substitutes. More substitutes mean higher elasticity, because buyers can switch easily. Necessity versus luxury matters too, with essentials showing lower sensitivity than luxury items. Time horizon influences responsiveness as elasticity tends to increase over the long run. And finally, the share of the buyer's budget matters because big-ticket items provoke stronger reactions to price shifts. This page shows how elastic demand links to total revenue when prices change. A small price cut can spark a large surge in units sold, often boosting overall revenue. The ride-sharing case highlights this effect, where a modest promotional discount expanded trips enough to increase driver income and platform revenue, illustrating the practical power of targeting elastic segments with selective price reductions. In contrast, inelastic demand means price hikes raise total revenue because quantity falls proportionally less than price rises. The pharmaceutical example illustrates this clearly. Life-saving medicines see continued purchases despite higher prices, so producers can sustain or increase income from a price rise, since the price effect outweighs the drop in quantity demanded. A perfectly elastic demand curve is drawn horizontally to indicate that any price above the market level leads to zero quantity demanded, a scenario typical of perfectly competitive markets selling identical commodities. This slide reminds us that in such settings, sellers are price takers, and even tiny price increases cause buyers to switch immediately to identical alternatives like standardized agricultural or foreign exchange lots. Supply responsiveness depends on how quickly producers can adjust, and 3 factors make a big difference. Flexible production capacity lets firms ramp output rapidly, ample input availability ensures resources and labor are on hand, and rapid scaling technology enables automation and quick expansion. The slide's supply response mechanism and the strawberry example show how these conditions translate a wholesale price jump into increased deliveries. Some conditions make supply inelastic, meaning higher prices can't produce more output quickly. Limited resource stocks, long production cycles like aged wine, and regulatory quotas all constrain immediate expansion. The vintage wine example underscores this reality. Even if prices rise, additional aged bottles cannot be produced overnight, so supply stays rigid and prices adjust instead of output. Time shapes supply elasticity. In the short run, firms face fixed capacity, existing plants, and immediate constraints, so supply is relatively inelastic. Over the long run, firms can build new plants, train workers, and adopt technologies, making supply more elastic as constraints are overcome. The key insight is that long-run supply curves are flatter because firms optimize and expand capacity over time. When applying price elasticity to strategy, firms tailor tactics to responsiveness. For inelastic demand, raising prices can lift revenue without losing many sales, while for elastic demand, lowering prices can expand market share and drive volume. Continuous optimization matters too. So, firms run tests, segment experiments, and iterate pricing thresholds to find the balance that maximizes revenue across different customer groups. This slide clarifies tax incidence versus economic burden by showing that statutory assignment of a tax does not determine who ultimately bears it. The side of the market with lower elasticity absorbs more of the tax because it cannot easily adjust quantity. The tobacco example highlights how low demand elasticity can cause consumers to bear most excise taxes despite legal assignment to sellers. Combining elasticity data with external shock indicators enables predictive equilibrium modeling, which helps firms anticipate how prices and quantities will shift after events like oil price spikes. For airlines, this means using elasticity and shock scenarios to adjust fares, optimize capacity scheduling, and mitigate financial risk so they can maintain or restore market equilibrium proactively rather than reactively.